All right. We are here to talk about the assisted outpatient treatment request for proposal. This is our pre-proposal information session. So we're going to run through um, what the RFP background is, talk about Zoom grants and the information there of how to apply, and then take any questions that come up. So the RFP team, so our lead is Andrea Howerton, uses she, her pronouns, and myself, I'm the program manager, Ash Warren, and I use he, him pronouns. So I thought we would start with what is AOT nationally, because they're trying to do locally is meet more of the um, be in standard with what's happening nationally that's working really well. So assisted outpatient treatment, or AOT, I will call it AOT from here on out, is really talking about community-based mental health treatment under a civil court order. So there's nothing about this that is through the criminal court. It is only through civil court, which is where Involuntary Treatment Act lives, all of those pieces. So each state has some version of AOT, and they do it all very differently. There's a few states that do it really well, New Mexico and Ohio. And in fact, a team from King County went to Ohio to try to model our program and our laws after the Ohio laws several years back. So the whole idea here is that we combine robust treatment with court oversight. So the most important piece of this is not the court piece. The court's job is to do whatever it can to support the relationship between the participant who needs it and the treatment provider who's providing the treatment. And so there's not a standard set model of how this is done beyond the idea that you need to combine the two things of court oversight and treatment. So there's a lot of robust research on AOT, and it is well known to reduce unnecessary hospitalizations for folks, arrests, folks going in and out of jail, and cycling through the system, all the different systems. And this, in the end, saves money through saving people's time of hitting all these systems that they don't need to be in. So we're trying to move in Washington State towards having AOT be the standard. We do, in fact, do a few things that are assisted outpatient treatment already in King County and have for a long time. So what you typically see is least restrictive orders, or LRs or LRAs, all the same thing. And that is court-ordered outpatient treatment. Our version of AOT has been through the least restrictive orders, and that's been the case since the 70s. And we have two specialized programs within King County to try to help folks on these least restrictive orders. One is the Assisted Outpatient Services Program, which essentially adds additional funds to give it enhanced treatment for folks on least restrictive orders. And then we did a 2-year pilot project called the Recovery Pilot Project, which I will talk about in a little bit. And the purpose of that was to try to use the criteria for the assisted outpatient treatment orders and operationalize it and see what worked and what didn't, so we could then build this program that we are RFPing out now. So that recovery pilot project has wound down while we are trying to ramp up AOT. So we didn't want to have any clients in limbo. So the other legal tool to use besides least restrictive orders, so you also might know of conditional releases. Those are generally from the state hospital. The other legal route is assisted outpatient treatment orders. So these were created in 2005, and the law did not allow us to meaningfully operationalize them anywhere in the state. There's a pilot project that's been going on in Pierce County. Spokane gave it a go and then gave up a few years back. But now there's a real big push to be able to use outpatient AOT orders. And so lots of legal changes have happened in the legislature, which I will talk through. So a little bit about our recovery pilot project that we did here in King County for 2 years. This is what the package of services that we put together to support folks who met the criteria for assisted outpatient treatment. So let's talk about the criteria for assisted outpatient treatment. That is generally folks who are cycling through the system. It is generally folks who do not have the clinical insight to know that they're ill and that they need help. It is folks who can't get the treatment voluntarily. So there is some very clear language in all versions of this law that if someone can do their treatment voluntarily, walk into a clinic and get what they need, that this is not appropriate for them. This is only for the folks who can't do it on their own or won't do it on their own. So the Recovery Pilot Project, we use that same criteria to really be able to support that group of folks. And we did that with peer support. So folks who had been involuntarily committed, working as certified peer specialists to walk alongside folks. We connected folks to all different kinds of resources, whatever they needed. It was very individualized, very specialized. We offered the agencies additional funding to be able to see their clients more. We did secure a placement at the Soto shelter. We understood that it was really important that if folks were homeless and houseless and did not have a stable place to be, that any of this other stuff would be very difficult. And then we did have some funding for limited material supports, getting folks cell phones with service, um, getting folks bedding, clothing, whatever access needs they had. And then the folks in RPP would come to court every 2 weeks, where we created an individualized treatment plan. We offered support to folks, celebration, and we helped them with whatever problem solve, whatever was coming up for them. And so this court was through the ITA court, but we created a separate courtroom. And because of the pandemic, we almost entirely met via Zoom. Our vision for this new AOT court is that it could be hybrid. Folks could show up on Zoom or be in person. And that was a place where the participant was really at the center of what we were doing. It was about that person coming and talking about what do they need, what did they want, what were they hoping for, what were they struggling with. And that team comprised of the judge, the prosecutor assigned to this program, their defense attorney, myself as the AOT coordinator, and then our peer support specialist, and most importantly, their outpatient treatment provider who came to this court. We are taking most of these components into this new AOT program. We figured out a lot of these pieces work. So that's wanted to sort of talk through that. So this is sort of a visualization of how this works. Excuse me. So peer assistance being a really important part of this, the court piece being supportive for the client and the treatment provider, that us all working together, and then the AOT treatment team being able to provide that specialized treatment to this participant. But all working in tandem, talking to each other, seeing ourselves as on team client. So this is what we found really worked with RPP, and we are hoping to continue on with this AOT treatment team. We knew, but we definitely had confirmed that peer support was really a key to this. Someone who has been there to walk alongside you is very important. Logistical supports, rides, cell phones, shelter help, all of those pieces were really important. If you couldn't figure out those pieces first, it was really hard to ask somebody to go farther than that. We had really high support combined with accountability for the outpatient agencies. Really, the whole idea of having the court involved is to have accountability for the client from all the different parties. And so I think that's one unique thing that happens there. We are on a team and we challenge each other to really show up best for that client. Holistic wraparound care. So we were helping folks with whatever problem they had. So if they needed to go to medical appointments, if they wanted or needed to learn how to cook, if they were struggling with family members or the whole family unit was struggling, we would try to help the whole family unit. We had several clients who were parents, either new parents or had kids that were a bit older, but were struggling either with it had dependency court cases or just figuring out how to live with a severe addiction or mental illness and show up for your kids. So we provided a lot of support in that way and a lot of other things, but those were a few that I pointed out. And then legal support. So the nice thing about this program and what makes it unique from a traditional treatment team is that there are also lawyers involved who can help us with the legal pieces. So they can help us talk to that client's dependency lawyer and explain what's going on and offer some help. The prosecutors can reach out to prosecutors in other counties and help, get certain cases dismissed if possible to be able to really focus on treatment. So that is a very special and cool thing. Squashing open warrants, stuff that would require somebody to go down to the courthouse. If you have lawyers on staff, they can just do some of that stuff. So I've talked about this a little bit, but the purpose of the RPP court and the AOT court will be really singularly focused on this person's recovery. So the traditional ITA court, the one that's in King County and often most counties, is really litigious. And we intentionally created a space of regardless of what your role was, if you were on the treatment team, if you were the peer, if you were the lawyer, that you really showed up in your role to support this person. So that was a cultural change, and it makes it quite a bit different than ITA court. And then we were really focused on what did the participants like and not like. We actually had quite a few folks who continued to come to court even after the court order had expired because they found it to be a really supportive environment and they wanted to check in with the judge, or they wanted to tell the prosecutor that they were still sober, or they really wanted access to continued peer support. So that was something I did not expect, that I was pleasantly surprised about. So a little history of the law. So this 7105, that is the law that covers DCRs, the ITA Court Involuntary Treatment Act. That has been around for a very long time. In 2015, that was after the trip to Ohio with some lawmakers and some folks from King County. AOT became the law in 2015. In 2018, we went in and there were some small tweaks to the law, but the biggest change to the law was in 2022, so last year's session, taking a lot of the feedback from RPP, the Recovery Pilot Project. The Recovery Pilot Project, while we served the same population, we had to actually use the least restrictive orders as opposed to the AOT orders because they were not operational. So we worked with the legislative body and some other counties to make some significant changes to the law, which allows for AOT to be operationalized. And actually, yesterday, the 2023 law has been adopted as well. So AOT originally was short court orders. Now AOT orders can be up to 18 months. So the idea that you can have meaningful engagement helping somebody towards their recovery. Initially, AOT was very limited in who could petition. And over these legislative changes, we have significantly broadened from just hospital ER social workers and DCRs. It is now the participant's case manager can, that's what went into law yesterday. Somebody's MHP, we can discharge planners at the hospital. So we really tried to open that front door of who can make the initial petitions in order to get somebody into these services. And one significant thing that's true in Washington that is not true about any other states is that AOT is now legal for participants all the way down to 13. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what that's going to look like, but adding adolescents on here. So the last minute amendment that just came through yesterday was this last bill had requested that the legal threshold be lower and the last minute amendment kept it where it is, which is fine. It's the same level that all the other AOT laws are as well. So that's clear, cogent, and convincing from the preponderance of the evidence. So all these changes to AOT, how will this impact the system? So AOT is an option for pre-hospitalization as well as post-hospitalization. So the idea of assisted outpatient treatment is for anyone who needs to be on court-ordered outpatient treatment, regardless of where they are in the system. So for some folks, going to the hospital is the traumatizing part. And so getting somebody on an AOT order to avoid the hospital might be that person's goal and something we can help them with. Or we can still use AOT when somebody is leaving the hospital in lieu of a least restrictive order. Or now with some of these changes, we've really tried to integrate to have access to the folks who end up in jail, who meet this criteria, to be able to go directly into AOT. The designated crisis responders were the only people prior to these law changes, them and the hospital ER social workers that could petition for AOT. That has now widely expanded. So that allows the DCRs to do their work. And then other folks, the folks with the most information, which is generally their treatment providers, to be able to petition the court and say, hey, I'm concerned about this person. So these court orders will now be longer. LRs generally are 90 days. These are up to 18 months. And that is determined by the petitioner. So you as a case manager, MHP, could petition directly to the court and say, I think this person needs to be on this court order for a year or a year and a half or 2 months or whatever it is. But this does allow for some meaningful engagement. We were having some struggles with the recovery pilot project because we would just be getting somebody would just be getting their footing around the recovery, and then the program was over. So 3 months was not quite enough time. So this is exciting here. And I talked about this already, but the clinical provider or the team with the most relevant history and ongoing relationship can do the direct petitioning. And we've got some funding, which is why we are putting out this RFP. Understand the outreach. We need to share information with the courts and providers, that we really all need to work together. So here's how we envision this going. So at the county level, and we're hoping that the AOT team and the county work really hand in hand together. So there is, I'm the AOT coordinator. I just hired an AOT monitor who will oversee the care of the folks on these orders and be able to make sure that folks get enrolled in services and really be able to help this treatment team. And then we have county level peers who will be able to do outreach, to sit with folks and work with them that is not tied to their treatment. And then the plan here for this RFP is to create a modified ACT team. So we're doing the RFP process. Really important that there's this team is culturally informed, really responsive, culturally responsive. It has some training in trauma informed practices. And the vision here is that this 13-person team approximately will be able to see up to 100 clients. That's standard best practice for wraparound service. So I wrote this here, potential staff structure for AOT treatment team. So proposals can have different number of staff, different professions. This was sort of my vision, but I'm really excited to hear from the respondents what your vision is. So maybe it doesn't make sense to you to have an occupational therapist and you'd rather have another peer specialist, or you don't think you need a whole full-time FTE for a prescriber, that half-time is fine as far as the workflow. So this is a template. This was what my brain thought of, but there's no hard and fast structure here. But the idea really is to have a robust team around each participant that knows those participants and can use their expertise to be able to help this person in their recovery. So folks to be able to give out meds if that's a part of their treatment package, folks that can do the peer work, folks that can help with the resource acquisition for folks who are, need other things. So again, this is really this is allowed to be played with. Just wanted to sort of share the potential structure here. And I am going to pass it over to Andrea.
Thank you, Ash. That was some great information. We're now going to talk about the RFP process and how you can respond to this RFP. Here is the tentative timeline. It was issued on March 31st. Today we are having the applicant or proposal workshop. The final day to submit questions in writing will be April 21st. You can do that either by emailing me directly, which will email will come up in the next couple slides, or you can use the contact admin tab within Zoom Grants. All questions will then be gathered and posted on Zoom Grants as an amendment to the RFP, so please look for that as well. Applications are due on May 1st by 2 p.m. That's not on here, but please note that time. Please don't wait till the very last minute in case there are any technical issues. The applications will then be reviewed and evaluated between May 2nd and May 16th, and hopefully have a notification of selected and non-selected proposals by May 29th and a contract start date within the month of June. Once applications are received, the first step in the review process is the administrative review, which will be to make sure all proposals are complete and responsive to all elements of the RFP, and then make sure that all applicants do meet the minimum qualifications that are stated in the RFP. If there are any questions or if there seems to be something missing, we can ask you some follow-up or clarifying questions, but please make sure that your proposals are responsive and complete to all elements. It'll then move on to the review panel, who will use the scoring criteria laid out in the RFP to score each application. They'll then come together and have a review panel meeting to have recommendations based on the highest scoring proposals. Those recommendations then go to the DCHS leadership for final approval, and then can go to contracting. On this slide, you can see kind of the high level categories for each section of the narrative questions and then how they will be scored. You can find a better and more detailed breakdown within the RFP. But here is just the high level organizational description is worth 30. Project description will also be worth 30. ESJ understanding is worth 20. Data collection is worth 15, and then your budget proposal and fiscal questions are also worth 15 for a total max points of 100. We do also have included possible interviews if there seems to be some remaining questions after the written review. That is another 20 points if we do that. To apply for this RFP, we use the online third-party system called Zoom Grants. You can find the link right here. It is also in the posting email if you need to get to it at that point. Make sure when you are in Zoom Grants that you go through each tab and answer all questions that are on each tab, and include any supporting documents and upload it on the Documents tab in Zoom Grants. Zoom Grants is nice. It will let you know if you have any required elements missing before you hit submit. But once you hit submit, make sure that it does say that your application has been submitted. And again, you can email me directly any questions here at dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov, or you can use the contact admin tab in Zoom Grants. So for applicants, just again, some reminders, applications must be received via Zoom Grants no later than 2 p.m. on May 1st. Again, please do not wait to the last minute to submit your applications. And if you are experiencing technical issues, please reach out as soon as you can. We can usually troubleshoot that for you pretty quickly. And if we can't, we can get the Zoom Grants help desk involved. They're pretty responsive as well. If it really comes down to not being able to submit, we can also accept applications via email, but still the time and date still applies for that as well. Please be regularly checking Zoom Grants for any updates, clarifications, or amendments. They would be included in the library tab in Zoom Grants. It's best to start an application. That way we can directly email any notifications if these do, if an amendment, for example, an amendment gets uploaded, we can directly email you. Otherwise, you are responsible for checking for any updates. And again, these are both reminders about if you're experiencing any technical issues in Zoom Grants, please let me know as soon as you can. And also, again, we can't say this enough, please allow sufficient time to submit your application just in case you have issues. DCHS also offers a great program, capacity building and technical assistance or grant assistance. It's called GACB. It's available free for any organization. It does prioritize smaller organizations, but it is open to all organizations that are interested in applying for this RFP. So you can find more information on the DCHS website, or you can go click directly to this link down here. And you can find support on whether you qualify for this RFP, some writing support, Zoom grant support, things like that. And then if you are awarded a contract, we also provide capacity building support that can include technical assistance, IT support, HR support, legal, things like that. So if you are interested, please make sure to check out this website and reach out to any third-party consultants that we have listed on there. So this brings us to the end of our slide deck. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime with questions here at my email, dchscontracts@kingcounty.gov, or directly through Zoom Grants in the Contact Admin tab. Ash, do you have any closing words before we close up here? If yes, you're on mute.
Sorry, trying to get unmuted here. Just wanted to say I'm excited about this work. I think this is a population that as a system, we've not been able to support as well as we've all wanted to. And coming from a clinical perspective, a treatment team side perspective, it's been really hard to watch clients that we care for. We have to wait until they are really, really sick in order to help. And this is a new tool where we won't have to do that. We can get people the support when we see them declining instead of having to wait until there's an emergency situation. So this to me is a really missing piece in our continuum. I think it has been exciting and fun work over the last few years to do our pilot project to get this up and running. And I'm really hopeful for the healing and the recovery that's going to come for the folks who have access to this. So I'm excited for folks' applications and to work alongside you on behalf of these folks that often get forgotten. And I'm excited to be able to bridge that gap. So thank you for your applications. Please do send any questions directly to Andrea, and we will go from there.
Thank you.